Let's start this video to clarify something. I may or may not treat Deep Rock Galactic like CPR. This channel pairs well with Deep Rock Galactic, much like crying children and alcohol abuse. If I don't put out a video of DRG weekly, my channel implodes, and I watch my cool, funny YouTuber statistics plummet faster than the Russian ruble. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my arachnophobia simulator as much as the next dwarf, but this should solidify why I want to get this review out here. I am willing to sacrifice it all sub 400 of you, to bring you this review. Welcome to the waters of Europa, to the deep water terror of Barotrauma. Ledger! Oh no! I'm in the walls! Don't repair anymore, I need out!
Alright, I'm
keep
just gonna keep working
repairing!
on the engine, bro.
Keep repairing!
I see.
And that is just one of the many denizens of the abyss, all as equally cuddly and welcoming as the last. So, what is Barotrauma all about? To begin, let's start at what the hell is going on in the first place. It takes place in the distant future of 2022, where the SpaceX rocket didn't go kaboom. Humanity has settled into the irradiated landscape of Europa, one of the many moons of Jupiter. Due to the hostile surface, we decided to become subaquatic creatures, navigating the oceans beneath the ice of the moon. How do we accomplish this? Submarines. Creating a chain of underwater stations and shipyards, we created a network of ocean routes to reap the moon's abundant natural resources. However, as time went on, we began to separate from our more land-based brethren, and after about 50 years before the game takes place, all contact with Earth, mysteriously, ceases to exist. The last bastions of humanity do the natural thing, of course, and devolve into civil war and fanatic-based genocide. And the radiation forces us even deeper into the godless abyss. So what is the gameplay all about? Well, you take the place of just another captain of a submarine. You and your crew complete impossible missions just to earn a living, and to escape the ever-encroaching radiation. You're expected not to make it, and as you progress, you'll see just how unlikely it is for you to survive. Yourself and crew tackle a myriad of tasks, from simple personnel and cargo transport to full-blown U-boat warfare. Before we delve into each crew position, allow me to introduce you to the crew resource management concept. Each crew member has skill points to assist with the survival of the sub. You all have to quickly and properly apply yourselves to your field of expertise. Failure to do your job, unlike the citizens of Earth, results in a little more than a verbal counseling and slap on the wrist. It implies getting crushed alive by pressure, or being eaten while you scream. With this concept in mind, let's get into the playable classes, starting with the Assistant. The Assistant assists other crew members with their duties. They're a jack of all trades, meant to do the dirty work wherever they're needed. From cleaning up the sub to welding holes in the wall, for bigger crews they're an essential part of life. This is also a good time to get into the perk progression. There are perk points for every class, which are obtained by successfully completing missions, and not finding out what the inside of a mud raptor looks like. Perks will lead you into a higher state of specialization, allowing you to either boost the skills of your fellow crewmates to pushing your physical limits beyond the norm. Assistant skills tend to lead them towards a support role, or to become one with the Hawk Mother. More on that one later. The mechanic is exactly what it sounds like. Your job is to keep the engine running and the water out. They are all depressed and pair well with tobacco to severe caffeine abuse. This is a preferred role of a friend of mine, ironically, a mechanic in the real world too. And, well, the shoe fits. Their perk points allow them to either do their job and inhale insane amounts of welding gas, or to become a roboticist or alcoholic, respectively. Next is the engineer. If you're a nerd and enjoy computer science and coding, you'll be right at home. All aspects of sub's behavior and function can and will be made as effective as humanly possible, with the use of actual logic circuits and wires. To truly shine in this role, take Java 101, because holy shit, you're going to need it. They can either become a military-industrial complex, or prevent you from finding out why radiation makes your head so fuzzy. Onto my favorite role, medical doctor. If you're an average Joe, the complexities of putting on bandages and shooting up opiates may be a little confusing, so having a doctor around may be slightly important. As you adventure through the waters, you'll find that getting injured is a way of life, and when your boo-boos require the use of 50 cc's of anti-paralysis medication, you'll be grateful that someone on the ship knows how to use a needle. Perks for this class lead you to either become a chemical weapons plant or the Emperor of Mankind, and spreading your new and improved gene seed with the rest of the crew. The captain provides the non-essential skill of piloting the submarine. They tend to either develop a schizophrenic-like habit of checking every status monitor at once, or adopt the fuck it we ball mentality. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Their perk points allow them to either become a living god of the depths, or to give Irwin's speech from AOT, and inspire the crew to die, but look goddamn beautiful while doing it. Lastly, there's the security officer. These players tend to either allow anarchy within the confines of the sub, or subscribe to a certain mustached man's way of thinking. Their job is to shoot things until they stop moving, and much like an inner-city police officer, they will use lethal force for the slightest injustice. They have a fun choice of guns, guns, and more guns. Now, what exactly are you doing in the ocean? That's a choice made by the crew, and the missions, which, by the way, there are at least two different kinds of, lead to all sorts of shenanigans. Missions completed awards you money, resources, and reputation, each a vital component to making it to the next station. Marks, the currency of Europa, afford many new tools of survival, from upgrading the sub to curing that crippling morphine addiction. Marks is the lifeblood of your campaign. If you don't have money, you're going to have a bad time. Speaking of sub upgrades, there's a high level of customization for each type of sub, from changing out your coil gun for an actual las gun, to making it so that when you descend too far, you don't figure out the physics behind the crush depth. You can change your sub to fit your needs, starting with the simplest of upgrades, turret hardpoints. There are 4 different types of turrets in the base game. You have the coil gun, essentially an all-round pea shooter that will carry you through early game. It is an all-round turret meant to take on smaller enemies and submarines. As you go deeper, you'll find it doesn't work that well against enemies that are bigger than the sub itself. Ammo is cheap and there's plenty of it, so you won't have to worry about going destitute to defend yourself. Next is the chain gun, which is just a minigun. Low damage, lots of bullets, meant to shred smaller creatures and simulate the experience of being a door gunner in Vietnam. Hold down left click and pray you hit whatever is trying to eat, kill, or impregnate you before it gets danger close. Next on the list is the flat cannon. Low rate of fire, high damage to deal with beefier subs and monsters. Its spread of fire makes it a useful alternative to the coil gun for later missions, as it can still be utilized as an individual target or multiple target platform. The railgun utilizes single-shot, high-damage projectiles that are launched at the speed of sound to devastating effect. If you thought that wasn't enough, they can also be loaded with an explosive surprise, all the way up to being rigged with a nuclear payload. Meant for those big baddies that make your pants soiled and tears flow, they're a necessity for the late-game missions. The last is the pulse laser, a slower rate of fire but high damage to any fleshy bits. They're meant to take out organics with no mercy, and are damn good at doing it. No bells and whistles, just seared flesh and a slightly better time for the crew. There's still plenty quality of life upgrades for the ship, and I highly encourage you to experiment with different official and homemade improvements. Resources can be sold for marks or used in the extensive crafting system. Why buy uranium fuel rods when I can craft them in my basement? Why buy ammunition when I produce it in my game shack? Reputation affects your standing with the faction you take the missions from. Speaking of factions, there are 4 of them in the base game. The 2 least interesting are the Europa Coalition and the Jovian Separatist. The Europa Coalition is the standing government, an iron-fisted bureaucracy with a habit of killing off stations who don't agree with them. They use their established military might to, correct other peoples who may not agree with the semi-fascist way of life. The Jovian Separatists are essentially democratic freedom fighters, being the result of a failed political party that after a nuclear disaster at their headquarters dissolved into a group of semi-connected outposts opposing the coalition. Ranging from peaceful protests to space terrorism, they are the second main faction. Onto the more colorful factions, there are the Children of the Honk Mother and the Church of the Husk. The Children of the Honk Mother are essentially a large group of clowns who believe everything is a big laugh, and wear appropriate attire to pay homage to the Honk Mother. No one really knows what the hell the deal is with them. and legends exist of the first clown being rescued from the sub, while all other crew members were floating lifelessly around them. The Church of the Husk are not exactly haha funny, more like haha please don't put those eggs inside me. They worship a group of parasitic inhabitants of Europa called Husk, which are a species of alien that takes over the body of the host. They believe that by merging themselves with the Husk, they receive ascension, and some scandals exist where they forcibly implanted settlements with their gift, and now they've grown reclusive, not sharing their tentacle fetish with others. As you travel deeper and deeper to avoid the radiation from the moon's surface, you'll begin to encounter some of the hostile flora and fauna of Europa with increasing regularity. You'll go into the depths, finding more and more bizarre occurrences, and stranger things. You'll be tasked with more difficult missions, and as you travel through the murky darkness, you begin to ask yourself questions. What happened to Earth? Where are these abominations coming from? What are these ruins we keep finding? And what is the Eye of Europa? And why is it staring right at me? Barotrauma recently released its 1.0, and for a game that's been in development for several years, doesn't disappoint. This release is what prompted me to make this video, as it is a breath of fresh air compared to the mediocrity of modern gaming. In my humble opinion, this is a game best played with friends, as the bonding experience of watching each other get ripped apart by
Where are
tiger
you so you can
threshers
rip the
is an
genes
event
out
to
of your
bring you
body
together.
and give you new ones?
If the base
Oh,
game
that's
isn't
so
enough,
cute.
the modding community has released incredible new content to the platform, so I highly recommend you check it out. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, Barotrauma is one of the best thalassophobia simulators on the market, and you should definitely give it a try.